Ladies and gentlemen, like an infestation of Cardassian voles, the Tribble Timewarp returns once again. This is the Incursion scenario, one of the new missions on Tribble, and if Cardassian voles are all you've got running around in this cargo bay, then you can count yourself lucky. We are in the Federation Fleet Starbase, or at least a chunk of it, and we have a slight intruder problem. Security have locked the place down, but fully aware of what wearing red shirts means in this universe, they've waited for us to go in and clear them out. Sensible people. There are two environmental oddities in this mission which presuppose a certain amount of planning on Cryptic's part and quite nice touches. The first is that the lights are out. So naturally we're running on torches a la What Lies Beneath, for those of you who remember the Davidian series. The second is that because the intruders took the internal sensors offline, the maps don't work. You can see that we've just got a static feed, which is a little bit of a pain. So this is the first phase of 3. We have 4 minutes to hunt down as many saboteurs as we can. There are also other random enemies wandering around. In this case it's Gorn, but you can get Klingons, Orions, any of the usual enemy groups can and will turn up in this mission. For the record, Swordmasters in these close quarters are really nasty. And for those of you who had a bit of thought and figured out that, hey, if the internal sensors weren't working, maybe we could use tricorders, no, that doesn't work either. Here's our saboteur, once in the back, and a few more times before he can beam out, and I think we got credit for him. There are also some anti-proton turrets dotted around. It would be nice to see these more race-specific, because the Gorn use disruptors, as do the Klingons. At the moment we seem to get anti-proton turrets regardless of race. Now it may be that there's a reason in the backstory for this that hasn't been elaborated on, i.e. they've subverted the internal security systems as well as the sensor grid, but at the moment it just smacks of slap some turrets down and let's get going. Phase 1, you very much find yourself working independently and hunting progress bars. Yeah, that's often your first clue. There are some audio cues, mostly people muttering about security patrols, but those don't seem particularly localised, so I'm not sure those sound effects actually give any useful information about where the enemies are, which it would be nice to either see those made sourced so you could home in on the audio feeds, or else just removed entirely on the basis that whoever is doing this has got the brains to keep their mouths shut. That, in case you're wondering, is from the IDIC Tribble. Someone must have been using one. Anyway, let us continue hunting. It really is a pain not having the minimap. You often don't realise how much you depend on something until you have to deal with it. The map itself is basically a crate-filled maze. It makes sense, this is a cargo bay after all, but I don't know. Do we have the art resources? Does Cryptic have the art resources available to just do a few different crates? On the other hand, would you really expect different crates? I mean, it's not like you make an individual work of art out of a packing box several zillion times over. Or maybe you do. Maybe Starfleet has a very, very bored crate designer in the ranks. Now, saboteurs will occasionally surrender. That just saves you having to shoot them a few times. Of course, this turret thing is a nuisance, but each time you fall over... How long? 45 seconds, right. Turn back and wait. Lying little sod. Die. Thank you. Now, not much time left on the clock. The game will beam saboteurs in, and I don't think there's any way to get to that crate, by the way. I have looked. It would be interesting. It's got the look of a bonus of objective in the sense of, are you smart enough to figure out how to get up here, but I don't think there is a way. I may not have looked hard enough. However, bear in mind that that crate is there. We will be coming back to it later on. So, 8, 5, 4, 3... Right, we're not going to find another saboteur, and it pops it. We go to a cutscene. Now, this isn't actually a different cargo bay we're going into. It's the same cargo bay. Again, the minimap kind of covers the fact for about 2 seconds. Then you realise that the NPCs are in exactly the same places as they were. Phase 2 again has 4 minutes on the clock, but it changes the rules a little. There are 4 saboteurs only, 1 in each corner of the map, more or less. Unfortunately, there are some very, very large packs of enemies roaming around between you and them. So if you attempt to brute force this, you're going to get into a fairly major firefight. Whereas in part 1 you could split up and sweep the map fairly efficiently, here you have got to group together, and there's so much incoming fire that really it would help if I remembered what heals were for in this game. I have to admit this now, ladies and gentlemen, I completely suck at the ground game at Star Trek Online. No sight, wait for the shields to come back and pop a few heals. There we go, still not ideal, but at least I'm not about to die again. Keep whittling down the score. Now obviously we're losing time here. However, I don't see how it's possible to avoid these groups, so I suspect this is what is going to separate the good groups from the merely average or the downright bad. Because a good group will be able to coordinate and plough through these large packs in short order. A less well coordinated group, or at least a less knowledgeable group, obviously won't know where the saboteur is, and will have more trouble dealing with the packs, will take more time and less work at all the saboteurs, and will therefore forfeit fleet marks. Now let's see if we can find a way around these guys. Yes, we can, and it looks like Raven had the same idea. Now, is that guy's progress bar? No, it's stalled. He's dead. Now, do we regard that as a bug? Should that have disappeared? Does it matter? He's obviously not sabotaging anything anymore. Continuing on, you'll notice that took us 2 minutes and we've only got one of the packs dealt with. This is where voice comms would also come in quite handy if you could be bothered to coordinate, because of course you've got no minimap and obviously you don't know automatically where your fellow players are. Again, it's a nice touch from the Cryptic, although it would also be good to see Tribble is functional. So you found yourself tiptoeing around, checking the Tribble revcon, just to make sure you don't swing around and blunder into another major patrol. If Cryptic are expecting you to do this phase with any kind of subtlety, then they're either expecting you to memorise the patrol routes and timings, which is a dodgy business at the best of times, or they're really asking the impossible, which is somehow telepathically know where these... Oh, right, you're behind me. Can you die? Which is to somehow telepathically know where the enemies are, without functional tricorders, internal sensors, overlay maps, or indeed any of the other coordination tools we've had for the last 2 years in this game. This really is going to be a solid test of how well an Arrangement can function. 40 seconds and we're still looking for a third saboteur. Yeah, we're not going to find it. Right, let's just cut out this entire fiasco and skip straight to the third phase, because there's really nothing else of use to show here. The third and final phase triggers when the timer on phase 2 hits 0, which is what you'd expect. This is 2 waves of ordinary mobs, plus a boss wave that you have to unlock by clearing out the trash. So far, so standard. The kicker is that you're on a timer. You can see there that the boss has a progress bar. If that hits 0, essentially you fail the wave and you forfeit marks. Fortunately, it's not too hard to pull down. This is certainly much easier than phase 2. As you can see now, that's got rid of one of the waves. Where did the other go? Didn't mean to do that. I was trying to hit the flashlight. Yeah, as I've said, I suck at the ground game. I really, really do. Hopefully I can round up a few makers and we'll try and get a slightly more professional take on some of these missions. Maybe. Now then, I think we've got a few strays. Let's quickly patch this chap up, and yeah, that looks promising over there. Okay, so they've cornered them behind those crates. Aha! There we go. You can see that the force field control has mysteriously appeared. Apparently it was cloaked. Just hit the button and then back off hard because they're immediately going to aggro. Bodyguard is a 4.5 named mob. Nothing particularly outrageous that I've ever seen from these guys. And a few bodyguards on top. You'll notice his progress bar is still moving even though he's walked away from the console. I think you've got about 2 minutes to bring him down, start to finish. But yeah, the timer stops once he dies, so you don't have to clear out the rest of the problems, be they Gorn, Klingon, or indeed anything else. I've hit Orions in this mission as well. I don't know if you can get the Borg here. It's not really a problem. And with that done, that is the end of the mission. It tallies up your fleet marks based on how many objectives you did, and once your red alert state wears off, it will pop up a mission summary. There you go. So that's probably a fairly average performance. And no, there's still no way up onto that crate. Want to buy grapnel? Please and tell. So what we've got is something that is a quick 15-minute ground blast for those of you who prefer it to space. It seems to be relatively bug-free, and it's not overly challenging, which is fine considering that it's basically a grind scenario. But I have really got to get good at the ground game. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, farewell.